Nope, you go ahead.
Welcome to breakout session 2. It's my pleasure to introduce Andrea Walker-Leidy, who is with Publicity Consulting. And I love that it says President and Chief Storyteller. Awesome. She's going to be talking today about how publicity and media outreach benefit nonprofits. So I'll turn it over to Andrea. Please welcome her.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Is it recorded? Are you good? Okay. We had a last minute computer switch because I brought the wrong laptop. So we're going to just keep moving along. I am Andrea Walker-Leidy. I am with Walker Publicity. We do all things PR, social media, reputation management. And I don't know how many of you were in Jeff's talk before this one, but he talked a lot about reputation. And I love that because so much of who you are and what your brand is happens either subconsciously or because of your reputation. And media is one of those things. So when I talk about public relations and media, a lot of times what people forget is that it's everything you do as a nonprofit. Everything you do is a part of your story. So, so I'm going to talk today about how PR and media outreach can benefit a nonprofit. Really what that looks like, how you can engage with media, how you can share your story. And really, you know, as a nonprofit, you have a mission and you have a story to tell that is unique to you. I like to always remind people just in every conversation we have that PR should just be a part of your marketing plan as a business or a nonprofit. It's just a piece of that, right? It should be a seamless integration of PR, social media, your donor relations, your marketing outreach, your email campaigns. Everything should work together. So right off the bat, if your donor team, marketing team, social media team, PR team aren't all talking, that's note number 1 to take. Everyone should be talking and meeting regularly. They should all know what's happening in each other's worlds because all of those worlds are the story to tell. All of those worlds, the amazing things that happen in your organization are your story. The things that happen, I tell people, for you, it's just a Tuesday, but it's probably something really cool in other people's worlds. So just being aware of what's happening in each other's world, having a marketing plan that's a seamless integration. Everyone should be communicating regularly, normally. It shouldn't be a last minute thing for the events person to tell the PR person, oh my gosh, we're having a donor event that we want to invite the public to. It's tomorrow. Can media come? No, they cannot come. They're busy and they don't know about your event yet. So marketing plan should be cohesive, seamless integration to create that awareness and create that conversation. Why do I call it storytelling? I'm not able to get over this screen thing. It's so high up there. I guess it's good for you guys. Why do I call it storytelling? I believe that everyone has a story, everything is a story, and I just really love telling stories. So the other piece of that is that it just makes everything a little less overwhelming and intimidating. Publicity, PR, social media, content calendars, all of these things sound overwhelming. When I say to someone, hey, tell me a story about how you started this. Tell me a story about what you guys do with this event. It instantly just relaxes everyone. And you remember that what you're trying to do is engage with people about what you're passionate about. As nonprofits, you have these amazing, beautiful stories to tell from the work that started, how you started it, the people who've been involved with that, and then the people who've received those services or received what your mission is. So public relations and media outreach are really just the how and where, right? You have a story to tell. How do we tell it? Where do we tell it? That's my job. My job or your PR team's job is to figure out, okay, we have this amazing story. How do we tell it? I used to say, we know word of mouth works. I just have a really big mouth. I don't really use that tagline anymore because I feel now everybody knows that big mouth. But that's really the truth of it. The media is your bigger mouth. The media is your ultimate storyteller. They're the ones that we get our stories from. And so if you can be the person who says, hey, I have a cool story for you to tell, then that's how you get that media engagement. Your job as the nonprofit, as the organization, is to think about what is cool about your organization and say to a media person, hey, I have a cool story to tell. Are you up for it? That's really, you know, not to tell the secrets of being a PR person, but that's what I do. My job is to make relationships with the media, to have them trust that if I'm calling them, it's because I have a cool story to tell them, right? It's like, hey, this is happening tomorrow. This donor event that you're not interested in is happening tomorrow. I'm not going to call them about that because it's tomorrow and they're not going to come. And they trust me that I'm not going to do that. So that's part of what the PR job is. I'm a little bit of a gatekeeper. No, that's not going to go anywhere. I love that, but that's not a cool story. I have to say that to clients. That's part of the job, right? But that is really the piece of it. As when you talk about nonprofits, and you know, Jeff spoke about it. I know other sessions are talking about too. Storytelling, reputation. That consistent storytelling is what's building your reputation. It's what's giving people the ability to say, I understand what that nonprofit does. It touches my heart. I agree with their mission. So when it comes time for an ask, they understand it. They want to connect with it and engage with it. They want to give to and engage with the organizations that touch them. You may not be talking to everyone. You may just be talking to a set amount of people. And that is where the public relations piece of it comes in. You are relating to your public. It is not everyone. It's 2022, everyone wants to go viral. You don't need to go viral. I talked yesterday to a class of college students and a marketing class of college students. And I said to them, you guys are gonna be shocked, but I tell a lot of clients, they don't need to be on TikTok. And your donor base is, I don't know, 27 to 45-year-old kids or moms, go for it. TikTok's your place. But, you know, if that's not your donor base and you're not either reaching out to folks whose services that they need, who are that donor base, which it might be, or they are your donors, TikTok may not be the place for you. Also, can you manage it? Can you do it? There's all these questions that come into that. So everyone wants to be viral. I tell people, decide what viral means to you and decide if you can handle viral. So what is newsworthy? What is unique to you? What are the stories that you can tell? Think about how you can tell those stories. Sometimes that does mean video, but it might mean video and sharing it in your email marketing. It might mean video and sending it to the news. It might be asking the news to come and interview a cool participant in something, or donor or relationship or staff person who has expertise. So the other piece is what's happening in the world around you. And I'm going to talk about this again because that's really important. We get kind of siloed in our world and we think that everything that's happening in our organization and in our life is everything that's happening in the rest of the world. And that's not true. So make sure that you're paying attention to what's happening in the rest of the world. And I'll touch on that again. The other things that are not maybe newsworthy, but are reasons to send a press release. I have that listed over here on the side. Are you having an event? Again, you should be talking about that. I have some clients and former clients in the room. We should be talking about that like a year before the event, right? What's the event? Who's it going to impact? Who do we want to be there? What does viral mean? If you're having an event for 100 people, you don't need 50,000 people to click on the event link. It's cool. It's awareness. But decide your goal for that thing. Decide what viral means. If you have an organization that serves youth, after school, transportation, and snacks, and you have a capacity for 40 youth right now with what staff you have, if you go viral and your phone starts ringing, you cannot serve more youth, and it's going to maybe cause a reputation problem. So instead of trying to be everything and going with the latest trend, stick with what is important to you. Decide what's viral. What that might mean is a really great story from your local newspaper is going to be the best impact. or a really great series of stories on your social media will be enough to generate your current following, get a little more, and the media watches your social media. That's how they find their stories if I'm not calling them. So that's the best thing to do, is just decide, right? What is newsworthy here? What is viral mean to me? And then this list, right? Is there an event? Is there a new hire? Is there an awareness or observance that we fall in line with? If you are a hospice nonprofit and it is Hospice Awareness Month, you should be talking about that. You should be letting folks know that you are the expert in X. I work with Haven of Oakland County. Last month was Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We do a lot of conversations with the media about domestic violence. It's all year, but especially in October, right? Especially in October, we let them know when you need an expert, we are here. We find out who those experts are, and we make sure they know that they can call anytime. The end goal for me is that a media person calls me. That's my favorite day in the world. Because that means we did the work, right? We did the work, we built the reputation so that when they need something, they know this person can connect me with the right people, can do it in the right amount of time, and it's going to be an expert on this story I want to talk about. And when that happens, that means you've laid the groundwork, right? They know who to call. They know what to do. And I'm gonna be like chatty, but if you have questions or you want to say anything, please raise your hand. That doesn't have to be a one-way dialogue. Go ahead.
Right now,
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the best way to connect to newspapers, televisions, email?
I'm gonna talk about that. So, okay. So yes, I have an answer, and I'm glad you asked now, but I'll get there. So we look at how do you share your story? Create a plan. Don't let it be on accident, right? Create a plan, be consistent, share stories, not fundraising or asks. Storytelling is PR. Storytelling is media. There are times where you'll be watching a news segment and they're like, this organization is accepting donations. Everybody could come by on Friday and fill this truck, right? The story behind that is not the donation. The story behind that is the impact you will have on X amount of people because of your donation. So it's still not the story. The headline I send to the media to try to get their interest is not going to be, we want everyone to give donation. It's going to be, so-and-so organization is going to impact X amount of people by this many donations. We need the community support. That's what that's going to look like. So it's always thinking about what's my impact, what's my story, what am I doing here? And create a plan. Don't, we're at the end of 2022. You should be thinking about January through December of 2023 right now. You should be talking right now about what's happening in your world right now and writing that down as ideas for 2023, November and December, so that when it comes time, you're not like, oh no, how do we do annual appeal asks because we don't have any stories to talk about. Talk about that now. What's happening? What do you guys do at the year end? What do you do for, holiday givebacks and partnering with your constituents or your donors? Really plan that out. A lot of people think the news is like red, hot, in the moment news. This news, it doesn't have to be. This news doesn't have to be timely. If it's a story, it can happen anytime. A lot of times you see a nonprofit in the paper or the news and you're like, how did they get that story? That's not even, I called them or someone like me called them or someone from your office called them and said, hey, we'd love for you to talk about this. If you're ever interested, let us know. And when they're interested, they might let you know, or you might follow up 3, 4 times, 20 times and find out. So with being consistent, letting folks know consistently, month after month, this is who we are, this is what we do, this is why it's impactful, and these are the people who do the work. That's it. It's this like back to grade school, who, what, where, when, and why, consistently will make that happen. So, easy, right? Share your story, the media will all find you. This is my next. That's everything, right? That's it. We do all the right stuff, but nobody called. We send press releases, nobody cares. We talked once we had a news story, but then never had any sense. That was 10 years ago. the media does not pay attention to us. You know, so-and-so big organization gets all kinds of news. So-and-so big organization has time and attention spent to media and PR. So there's no reason why everyone in this room and everyone who's a nonprofit can't be so-and-so big organization. It's time and attention to your story, time and attention to how you make media relationships. So this is where I get into the big notes. Start with the simple part. Identify your story, the newsworthy one. The newsworthy story is not, we are amazing at X. I mean, probably is, we are amazing at X, but the newsworthy story is not, we have the best soup in town. Everybody could say you have the best soup in town. What is the impactful story? What is the piece that allows you to do the work that you do, and who is impacted by your work? What is that? How does that work? What does a Tuesday look like for you that no other people get to see? That's the unique newsworthy story. It's the thing that the media will want to share. It's the thing that will make them look good as a reporter or an interviewer. It's the thing that you really hope that the community knows so that they can also be a part of this narrative. So these are my tips on how to discover that. Start paying attention to what other nonprofits that are similar to you are doing. We call that competitor assessment in the big world, you know, big word for it. Just pay attention. What are they doing? And instead of being like, why didn't I get that story? How did they get that? I wonder who they knew. Who wrote that article? Maybe I should find out what other articles that writer writes about. That's how you find out who is interested in something like you. What is happening outside of my world? I know I mentioned that a little bit before. What's happening in the bigger world? Do you have someone in your organization who can comment on that? If there are, you know, we are in some wars, we have an election coming, we have lots of, you know, race and equity issues happening all the time in our country. This is not a political conversation, this is just the news, right? If you have someone in your organization that may not even be about your mission, but if you've got a really great person on your board who does DEI work, ask them if they'd be up for some interviews. Ask them if they'd be willing to talk to the media about how your work impacts X. Talk to them about that, because now you're saying, if the world is talking about this, you already know it's something that's trending, right? Here's your chance to go viral. If it's a trending topic, if it's something that the news already cares about, find out if you have someone in your world who's an expert on that. It can be a board member, it can be a donor, it can be a staff person, it could be a participant. You know, find out what that looks like. Again, the schedule, create a plan. What are we doing next year that someone might want to hear about? And think right now how to lead up to what that bigger story might be. Think right now, how would I get to where I need to be? Who would need to be in the right place at the right time to get this story done in a year? If the media is going to call, regardless of what you do, regardless of your product, regardless of your service, education is what you're selling. Education is why the media wants to call you. They want to be educated about something. So when they call, be ready. Don't, going too far ahead, but don't call them until you're ready. Don't call them until you have 3 or 4 people with a really free schedule who are willing to talk at a drop of a hat and willing to get talking points and go on an interview. Don't call till you're ready. Take the time. Again, create the plan. Hey, next month we're going to talk about this. What 3 people in our organization feel comfortable talking about this? Okay, awesome. We're gonna be ready for that. You guys want to see the press release? Great. Now, are you comfortable if somebody calls? Great. Make sure those are folks that you're comfortable with. Do some media training if you want. Make sure that people feel ready for that. The nice thing in our world is lots of media interviews have been Zoom. So it's been a great way to get people comfortable with doing live interviews. Very rarely are you going to do a live interview if you're a nonprofit, unless it's like an in the moment thing. They're going to come, they're going to record. If you say something you hate, you can ask them to not say it. You know, you remember you're the good news. You're getting to fill in the good news of whatever's happening that day, whether it be print or online or any of those things. One key thing to remember when you're thinking about what's happening in the news, what do I want to look at? A lot of people think to themselves, you know, we live in Metro Detroit or Michigan, we should be in Cranes. Everyone wants to be in Cranes, right? We're not in Cranes, it's not, you don't exist. Yes, and be aware that your most valuable media outlet may not be the one that you watch and engage with. So that being said, not all your donors read Cranes, and not all the people who need what you have read Cranes. There are about 1,000 other ways to reach an audience that are not Cranes or the Free Press or Fox 2. Those are wonderful, and that's what that is a wonderful goal. It's a part of the integration, right? But take some time in that content planning, right? In that thinking about what our story is, take some time to pay attention to what do our donors read? What do our partners read? What do other nonprofits read that are like us? Because that's where you want to go. Those are the writers you want to reach out to. Those are the you know, the bloggers you want to reach out to. Those are the people who are sharing stories that are important to what you do and the story you want to tell. I have no idea what time it is.
11:17.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so here's the nuts and bolts of how we get this done. Create a media list. Start small. This is why I just talked about Cranes and Fox 2 and all the big stuff. I know those seem like our local news, but they're everything, especially if you are a nonprofit in Metro Detroit. You're competing against a lot of other nonprofits and stories to tell. So be okay with starting small. If you can start with your local newspaper where you're headquartered and maybe 2 or 3 other outlets where you just do some research. Find out who at that organization is writing about things like you, people like you, organizations like you. Oh, call our, sorry. That's fantastic, nice work. Our is a wonderful nonprofit partner, actually. And one that I don't even talk about because you partner really well with nonprofits. And
you are the
list,
reason why I'm sitting here.
and list all of our events and all of that lovely stuff. So thank you. Kathleen up here is from ours, so you should all talk to her afterwards. She's a lovely nonprofit partner, and
She's doing fantastically, and if you need someone, and if you've got the funding for it, if you don't, find the funding. Call Andrea.
oh, thanks. I don't even have to do, oh, and Maggie agrees from Winston.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't even have to do my own shameless plug. So create the media list, right? That is not always easy. So I tell you, like, really start small. I have a big media list. This is all I do. Media list isn't all you do. So start with, who do we know? Who do our boards know? Who does our CEO know? Who do people we know? Somebody knows somebody in the news. Ask for an introduction. Be shameless about it. You have a great story to tell. Hire an expert. Kathleen already did that plug for me. It's not as intimidating as it seems. There's lots of experts like me. I'm not the only one. It's not as intimidating as it seems to have a conversation or bring someone in. There are times where we can find funding for or write into a grant, my part of the work. So have that conversation. Don't be scared to start the conversation, but don't be scared to say, again, in your next year planning. I love when somebody calls me and says, hey, we're planning our 2024 budget. We really want to work with you. How does that work? Can you write some language that goes into this grant we're writing that we hope gets approved for 2024? I'm fine with that. I love future planning. That means that you're thinking ahead about what this looks like. That's wonderful. Read, watch, engage. Don't stop doing that. Make it someone's job to pay attention. That's where sometimes the hire an expert thing works. But if you can't, if you don't have capacity for that, just have it be someone's job. Maybe it's a volunteer. Maybe you have a marketing committee. Maybe you have a board member who is just savvy with connecting with folks. Just make it their job to read some headlines, You know, every newspaper and magazine and television outlet and radio does a nonprofit story all the time. One's happening right now, I'm sure. Just make it their job to find out who was featured and who did the story. That person who did that story probably likes nonprofits and might want to talk to yours too. Put that in your pocket for when you are ready for the story. So it's really just consistently being ready, having the conversation. Matt, I'm gonna pick on Maggie. Maggie and I talked last week and we were talking about Maggie's with Wigs for Kids. They have an amazing story. The media calls Maggie all the time. She's like, they know we do wigs. They do this tons of other amazing things, right? Amazing work that's impacting lives every single day. How do we get the rest of the story? And you just got to keep nudging. I call when the media calls you and it's like this great a happy accident. If you're like your goal in life, be prepared for the happy accident while planning for something that may or may not happen. This is the life of a PR person. You know, the media is always going to call me while I'm dropping off my son at school in the morning. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to rush them in the door and then I'm going to get back in the car, talk to somebody, and then hope that somebody else isn't dropping their kid off when they need to get interviewed in 20 minutes. Not everybody has to choose that life. I love this life, but not everybody chooses this life. So it's being ready, right? Maggie's ready when the media calls, but she's also thinking about how do we talk about the other stuff that isn't what we do yet, that isn't what's gotten in the media yet, that we're still building programs around, or we've been doing for a long time, and it's like this hidden secret. That's where those conversations start now or 6 months from now about what happens in that office. What do those donor relations people do? What events are they working on? Oh, they're doing a collection of makeup. They're doing whatever they're doing. Until you have those conversations and find out what's happening, you don't have the stories to tell. So it's consistently developing stories while you're waiting for the happy accident, because that's how you build that reputation. I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. If I didn't answer the how do you get pitched to media, the media in that really never wants a phone call. They're going to call you, but they're not going to want a phone call. We do consistent email, press releases. If you have a relationship with media, you can send a text, but not until that relationship is built. Assume that they've had 100 emails like yours that day. So assume that as you're putting your story together and you're thinking about your story, it's gotta be, think about the subject of your email line for an afternoon. Think about what's my hook, what's the thing that's going to make someone open this email. It's really important. It's the same thing that makes you, I think in headlines. It's just what I do. So, but like when I'm scrolling Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, what makes me stop? What photo made me stop? What 2 words at the top made me stop? Start thinking about the things that make you stop. Those are the things that will make the media stop as well. What headlines make you stop as you're flipping through something. And it's okay to just copy that. I mean, don't copy like the sister nonprofit in the next building over, but look at one in California and see what they're doing really well. See, pay attention to other organizations that are similar to yours in other areas that you think are doing it really well. And it's okay to reach out to them and say, hey, we love the media work you're doing. Would you mind if we mirrored some of that in our state? That's a compliment to them. That's okay. All right, so I'm going to open up to questions with what? Yeah, go ahead.
I have one because I actually just put a post out asking for recommendations for a media person to tackle all our social media driving. So how do you select that person? Is there questions specifically that I should be asking?
You want to know that they have the experience in nonprofit, but more than that, you want to know that they're consistent in creating social media plans, right? Like, can they do the work? Have they done the work before, so that you maybe have some recommendations of work that they've done that's gone really well? If someone, social media and PR, you can't really hide if you're good or bad at it. if someone's good at social media, the pages that they manage have good engagement and good posts and are growing, right? This is an easy one. If someone's good at PR, their clients get in the news. Some news, somehow, somewhere. Their conversations are consistent. So they should be able to send you some links of pages that they manage, some links of media coverage, some things where it's the work that they do. Because we can't really, people ask me all the time, how will I know if it's working? Well, I can't hide it. There's a deliverable that I need to give to folks. There's lots of other things that come into play, right? If I work with someone and no one's ever ready to be interviewed, or no one wants to be interviewed, or there's lots of stumbling blocks and I can't always do my work, but I should be able to get something done all the time. So anybody who's looking to do that, there are a lot of folks that really like social media and do it kind of as a side hustle now. And so that's a great way for nonprofits to start working with a social media person, is find someone who maybe has a full-time job, but wants to do this on the side and is willing to be organized and do that. And they, they're willing to work with you on that. Questions, comments? Things you've always wanted to say to Publicity? Yeah.
Hi, John Jason, thank you for the podcast. Really nice presentation. Thank you for that. So I'm trying to, with my podcasting, to just get more in the nonprofit space and work with more nonprofits. Really enjoyed the work that I've done so far. Curious if you've seen any results or have any experience doing podcasts with some of your nonprofit clients.
Yeah, we love that. So when I talk about other things besides traditional media pitch to, podcast is one of them. So everyone in this room, meet this guy. He would like to do a podcast with you.
Thank you.
Bloggers, influencers, podcasts, all of those are the other media now. The things that are a place to share your story and have a defined audience. The other thing great, and what I tell people all the time, sometimes no offense to you, because we have a wonderful podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just doing the thing to get the link to share on social media.
Yeah.
You're not going to create your own audio interview with your CEO, but John's going to. And now you've got this great story that John. Now you've got this great story that you can share to your followers. That was a wonderful interview with your CEO that John did. So yeah, huge result with podcasts, all of those. That's what I talk about. Maybe he has 1,000 subscribers instead of the 50,000 or the hour following, but it's your viral.
Quick follow-up, actually. So yes, I have some podcast clients. One of my focus of my business is creating podcasts for nonprofits. Do you have any experience getting us creating a podcast for the actual organization and post pitching others?
Yes. I haven't done that with an organization, maybe because two reasons. One, budget.
Sure.
Two, it's a big time investment to create a podcast. So typically speaking, they would, be a part of the Chambers podcast or something like that. I think it's a great idea. I hope that people will start moving in that direction. Still, everyone, please talk to John. What I think is great about that is, again, if you're looking at your content and you're looking at the ability to plan for a year, I love when you can control your content. That's why social media is so amazing. You can build your own following. You can have your own media outlet, right? Your media outlet is dedicated to you and actually wants to engage with you all the time. You have 10,000 followers on Facebook. That's the size of a small print news publication. Don't reference you don't get picked up in the paper this weekend. Talk to your social media. Same with the podcast, right? It's exactly the same. You can start creating content and budget time and money to do a podcast. You're creating beautiful content all the time that can be shared, given to media, used as a resource. I love that, right?
How does that work done?
I love it.
So you say you create podcasts for nonprofits, what do you mean creating?
So my background in radio, I was a radio DJ for 15 years prior to this. So I will sit down, help you develop the content. In some cases, I just edit the audio that you recorded. In some cases, I'll interview you. We set up what we're going to talk about. If you may not have to give the gap, I can kind of keep the interview flowing and make it sound professional so that you will highlight what your organization does.
Oh,
And I didn't mean to step on your toes.
That's very cool.
one way to reach a lot of nonprofits and one else. Are that the same bigger and becoming stable for nonprofit now.
Yeah,
I really.
Thank you.
that's great. If you haven't talked to them about that. Happy to.
Great.
Tell her to talk to you. Any other questions?
I have a question, but I'm
Yeah.
kind of confused about how.
Is this for me or John?
For you.
Oh, good.
But. Confused about, I really want my podcast on the 50.
Congrats.
A little confused. About the meeting like this. So about what platforms? So that, you know, about,
Platforms to use for putting your podcast out?
yes, and how to get it, like how to get the numbers up.
That is a John question.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you.
All right, we are about done. She's gonna make sure you fill out your surveys. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's you.
Okay, is it really? Because I got tricked last time.
So, when you like, this being more any social media, when you starting from zero, thought social media, because I didn't know what platform to put it on, so I'm not even really doing a lot. Well, that's not really true, but. You know,
Yeah.
how do you choose what's the right platform for what you're doing? Like, I have a YouTube channel, so I specifically do a certain thing on my YouTube channel. I have a following up there, but it's not what my podcast is, because they're two different things.
Yeah, yeah. Part of what I didn't talk about today as much, but is part of what the PR planning looks like and the social media planning is audience development, or finding out who your target, who your viral is what I usually call it. So who are you trying to reach out to and where are they? So, you know, look at your demographics and then see what social media they use and then start to be in those places. You could probably start that with your current email list. Where are they? Your friends, your board, all those folks. Find out what social media they use is like a grassroots way to do it. There's big analytics and research we can do on it, but the easy way to do it is, hey, what do you use most? Most people are gonna say Facebook and Instagram still, Instagram, TikTok. For engagement, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn are still the biggest players. So it's, you know, if you already have a YouTube channel, you've got content to share on those places. It can't hurt anything to start putting content in those places and then start doing some evaluation from there. Thank you all so very much. I love talking about PR and I'm happy to be able to bring you back.